There are celebrities who reinvent themselves, and then there are people who completely rewrite their story. Going from music to acting is already difficult, but going from a controversial past to becoming one of Hollywood's most respected actors is almost impossible. And yet somehow Mark Wahlberg did exactly that. Not only did he cross over, he transformed. So the real question is, how did he go from being dismissed as a joke in the music industry to becoming one of the most bankable stars in Hollywood? Because this wasn't a smooth transition, and it definitely wasn't guaranteed. In 1991, Mark Wahlberg exploded onto the charts as Marky Mark, fronting a radio-ready act called Marky Mark and the Funky Bunch. Good Vibrations shot straight to #1, powered by a relentless beat and a music video that played on loop across MTV. The debut album, Music for the People, went platinum, and Wahlberg's sculpted image appeared in Calvin Klein underwear ads that blanketed billboards and magazine covers. Every element, from the group's matching outfits to Wahlberg's shirtless bravado, was engineered for maximum impact. Producers Maurice Starr and Johnny Wright, veterans of pop assembly lines, built the Marky Mark brand as much for the camera as for the microphone. The press took notice, but not always kindly. Rolling Stone called the act catchy, if formulaic, and critics questioned whether any of it was real. For every screaming fan, there were industry voices dismissing Marky Mark as a manufactured product, a novelty for the MTV era. The music sold, the image sold, but respect was always just out of reach. Beneath the surface of the Marky Mark persona, a far heavier burden followed Mark Wahlberg into every room. A criminal record refused to fade with fame. In 1988, at just 16, Wahlberg was convicted for violent assaults in Boston, including attacks that carried a hateful edge. He served 45 days in jail, a sentence that shadowed his early career and cast doubt on any attempt at reinvention. Years later, after achieving stardom, Wahlberg tried to have those convictions wiped clean. In 2014, he petitioned the governor of Massachusetts for a pardon, only to be denied. The decision made headlines, reminding the public and Wahlberg himself that some mistakes can't be erased with a new image or a hit single. For a young man branded by both pop culture and the justice system, the path forward would demand more than clever marketing. It would require real accountability and a willingness to rebuild from the ground up. The decision came in public, not behind closed doors. In January 1994, Mark Wahlberg stood before reporters in New York and announced he was leaving the Marky Mark persona behind. The name that sold 1 million records and filled arenas would no longer follow him. He told Rolling Stone that dropping the name was not just for publicity, it was personal growth. The old image, built on bravado and MTV flash, had become a weight. Instead of chasing another hit or clinging to easy fame, Wahlberg quietly enrolled in private acting workshops in Boston. There was no film school diploma, no headline-grabbing transformation. He paid for sessions with a local coach, kept his head down, and learned the basics from scratch. For the first time in years, he chose the background over the spotlight, trading celebrity for discipline and the chance to build something real, one lesson at a time. In 1995, Mark Wahlberg stepped into a role that no one expected him to handle. Cast in the indie drama The Basketball Diaries, he played alongside Leonardo DiCaprio, taking on the part of a troubled friend caught in the spiral of addiction. The film itself was a modest release, barely making a dent at the box office, but Wahlberg's performance caught critics off guard. The Los Angeles Times described his work as hauntingly authentic, while Variety called it an unflinching embodiment of a drug-addicted teen. For the first time, reviews focused less on his past as Marky Mark and more on the rawness he brought to the screen. He wasn't just a pop star trying to act, he was showing evidence of real craft. That year, a handful of directors and casting agents started to see him as more than a novelty. This small but crucial recognition opened doors that had always seemed locked, giving Wahlberg the first real chance to earn respect on his own terms. When Paul Thomas Anderson cast Mark Wahlberg in his 1997 ensemble drama, the gamble drew raised eyebrows across the industry. Cannes audiences, usually quick to dismiss former pop stars, watched as Wahlberg delivered a performance that pulsed with urgency and vulnerability. Critics who once called him a novelty now found themselves quoting his scenes. In interviews, Anderson spoke openly about putting his trust in Wahlberg, insisting he saw something real beneath the tabloid headlines. The press, sensing a story, began to ask if this was the same man from the Calvin Klein billboards and MTV dance floors. As the film collected festival acclaim, the conversation around Wahlberg shifted. He was no longer just a reformed pop act. He was suddenly part of Hollywood's most talked about ensemble, an actor whose name belonged above the title. For the first time, the idea of a lasting transformation didn't seem out of reach. Recognition at the highest level arrived with The Fighter in 2010. Wahlberg's performance as Mickey Ward earned him an Academy Award nomination, the kind of acknowledgement that once seemed out of reach for the former Marky Mark. The Oscar nod was not just a trophy moment, it became a new yardstick for credibility. In the year following the nomination, industry analysts tracked a sharp uptick in major offers, and Wahlberg's team reported a surge in lead roles that lined up with the broader Oscar effects seen across Hollywood. Casting directors and studios, once wary of his past, now saw proof of lasting value. The nomination validated years of disciplined work and erased any lingering doubts about his place in serious cinema. With awards buzz and box office trust behind him, Wahlberg's reinvention was no longer a question. It was a fact, measured in both acclaim and opportunity. Reputation rarely forgives, and second acts are never promised. But Wahlberg's reinvention proves that discipline and relentless work can outlast even the loudest doubts. Transformation isn't given. It's earned.